Leasehold contracts on new homes are leaving tens of thousands of people paying unaffordable ground rents, and it's all being done using an ancient legal loophole. Buyers are encouraged to purchase leasehold properties with the promise of being able to buy the freehold at a later date. But the freehold is then sold off to a third party, which can raise the rent and charge extortionate amounts for even making an inquiry about works on their home. This scheme is even being used by companies who are working with the government's Help to Buy programme. The host of RT's Renegade Inc., Ross Ashcroft, explained the situation in more detail.
It's a mess, and it's called Britain's eye feudalism. And we've done some digging. Basically, this archaic leasehold law that we find. And these developers are exploiting home buyers because they're selling the freeholds twice. They're selling it to these offshore companies, but they're also selling it and not using the greatest terms or transparency, if you like, with the home buyers themselves. Excuse me. In many cases, the home buyers have been missold. They are looking at the conveyancing solicitors because of a lack of transparency, but they're also going back to the home builders and saying, this isn't good enough, we need compensation. Katie Kendrick, an NHS nurse at Arrow Park Hospital, she is one of our case studies, and this is what she's got to say.
I bought a leasehold property in 2014 and fully intended to buy the freehold after 2 years when I was legally entitled to do so. But before that point, they sold the freehold on. And I didn't realise what the impact of the onward sale of my freehold would be to me. My house was built by Bellway. They sold the freehold on without my knowledge because the right of first refusal does not apply to houses, only flats. So they wrote to me after they'd sold my freehold on saying, this is your new freeholder and these will be the people that will be collecting your ground rent and nothing else will change. Alarm bells didn't really start ringing. They sold it onto a company called Adriatic Land for GR1 Limited.
And how much do you know about that company?
I know that it's linked to the David Cameron family, William Astor. My ground rent's collected by a company called Homeground. You can't ring Homeground. There's no phone number for them. They don't take incoming calls. The only way I can correspond with them is via email. If you want to ask them any form of question, it's £108.
Well, hang on. I mean, because people think that an expensive landline, for instance, the universal credit thing with 55p a minute is bad. If you also ask a question...
If you want to ask if you need permission to do certain things, you need to pay £108.
And when you say permission to do certain things, what does that mean?
For example, if I wanted to build a small conservatory, which didn't need planning permission, so quite very small, Bellway would have wanted £300 permission fee. But when they sold the freehold on to the third party, the same permission costs £2,600.
These people are prisoners in their own homes. They didn't sign up for this, and this was the mis-selling point. You know, the conveyancing solicitors haven't been clear, and the conveyancing solicitors often have been suggested, recommended by the home builder, say, look, we've got a good relationship with these people, why don't you use these people? They only had a 28-day window to get a lot of work done.
They'll do it quickly.
They will do it quickly, and that sort of greased the wheels, if you like, and got this through. A lot of these people, and this is why this is a public interest case, a lot of these home buyers, leaseholders, a lot of them used the right to buy or government-funded taxpayer money to get on the ladder, as it were. And now they're stuck, and a lot of these houses are unsaleable because people don't want to come near them because of this huge financial millstone around their neck.
So they don't own the freeholds on their properties. Who does own it?
Well, and here we go. So shell companies, offshore companies, all sorts of faceless companies which are based all over the place. Cayman Islands, the UK, but we don't really know who owns these companies, operates them. A very, very nebulous sort of world, and it needs cleaning up quickly. The scale of this crisis, I mean, there are over 5.5 million leasehold properties in the UK. And people out there at the moment don't realise, a lot of them don't realise that a letter's going to drop on their doormat, and they're going to suddenly realise, you know what, my freeholder isn't the freeholder that I thought he or she were, or the company was. So, and these are the new terms, and they're so egregious, some of those terms, that the legal action that these homeowners have to take, even to get back on a level footing, is astronomically expensive to try and counter some of the rent seeking that's going on with these faceless companies.
So the government appears to have recognised this problem, and it's announced plans this year to ban new builds, at least, being sold as leasehold. Will that solve it?
Well, but there's got to be retrospective action. There's got to be retrospective action, because you can't just say from here on and then leave so many others stranded. This has been just a sleight of hand, really, and unless we do something retrospectively, because, I mean, for instance, Katie, an NHS paediatric nurse at Arrow Park Hospital on the Wirral, she's a value creator. She's doing a wonderful job, and we need people like her. She's had to become a leasehold expert in her spare time, as well as being a nurse, to try and fight this, as well as setting up all the groups. So the government needs to come in. It needs to come in very quickly, and yes, action so far, great, it's a start, but retrospectively they have to do a lot more.
What about the companies? What are they saying?
Taylor Wimpey have come back and they've said, following the review, that they've said how Taylor Wimpey houses on new developments will, in other than a small number of exceptional cases, be on a freehold basis. But again, it's bolting the door, after the horse is gone. They've also said that they're reaching some agreements with some freeholders to link it to retail price index, but that's also dogged with problems, because what happens, for instance, if a homo wants to leave that house to their children? What's that retail price index going to look like in the future? And they said that they've reached agreements, but the victims of this said that the home builders are not trustworthy enough to self-regulate, and the government needs to come in and take action, because they've proved with this specifically that they can't be trusted.
All right, Ross, very briefly, tell us when we can watch this.
Monday. Monday, we repeat 3 times on a Monday, 1:30, 6:30 and 11:30 for the Night Owls. Renegade Inc., only here on RT.